Hey guys, it is Christine. Welcome back. If you've been here before, if you haven't, hi. I have 3 kids. They're all very young at the moment. 4, almost 3. Oh my gosh, she's almost 3. And then my youngest is 9 months and will be 1 the day after her older sister turns 3. So they're all very close in age. They're all growing up way too fast. And I work from home. I run a couple of blogs. I have a parenting blog that is just my name, christinekeys.net. And then I also have a second blog where I help mamas learn how to blog for a living and also how to manage their homes efficiently. And that's called Raising Kids Making Money. I'll have them both linked in the description below. If you're watching this on YouTube, hi, please subscribe if you'd like to keep up to date with the videos I post. I am passionate about helping mamas to find joy in motherhood and not to be just totally overwhelmed and burnt out all the time. I like to offer tips and advice of things that have worked for me and that I believe could really help you out. So stick around if you want to see more. Today I'm going to talk about whether or not you should have a 3rd child. So as I mentioned before, I have 3 children and believe it or not, but I actually said when I was a child and then a teenager and then a young adult that 3 was the number of children I would never settle on. I would never just have 3 children. I don't know what it was about the number. I didn't like it. I felt like someone would always be left out and there was just no way I was going to have 3 kids. It was either going to be like 2 or 4 plus. That was it. And 2 really wasn't an option in my books. I knew I wanted more than 2. Fast forward to now and I have 3 children and I am done. Like done. I am very content with where we are. My body does not do pregnancy well at all. I really struggle with it and so we're done. And I thought it would be helpful to share what my thoughts are on having a 3rd child to help you if you're in the position of should I have a 3rd child. So our first 2 are 18 months apart in age. And we have a boy and a girl. And I had a really rough pregnancy the second time around. It was very, very painful. I hurt my tailbone like halfway through. It was awful. It was really, really hard. And I also had postpartum depression. So it was a lot of rough stuff that went on. But I knew that I wanted more children. And we came to the point where it was like, well, do we have a 3rd one now and be done? Or do we wait a few years, like 3+ years, and then have a couple more and be done? And I was like, I want to just be done. If I'm being quite honest, I just wanted to be done. I didn't want to be in the baby stage forever. I love my babies, but I don't love, like, it's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of hard work. There are definitely pros to your children becoming a little bit older and more independent, for sure. So I wanted to be done. So we thought about having a 3rd child and we went for it, and her pregnancy was the worst out of all 3. It was awful. My HCG levels were so high in the first trimester, they thought I was probably having twins. Like, they were super high. I was so sick. No, it was just another girl, and because I've had my pregnancies close together, I guess my levels were just super high. But anyway, so these are my tips for when you're coming to think about having a 3rd child. And yeah, just my experience with it all. So take it from that point of view, and you'll see that when I get into the first point, you'll understand why I sort of say that. Like, take it from that it's my point of view and not everybody's point of view. So first of all is to ignore opinions. Everyone is going to give you their opinion. Like, I cannot tell you how many times people said to me, oh, you can't be done with 3. Like, you can't. Like, that's a terrible number to end on. I mean, I was one of those people before I had 3 kids. And it is so unhelpful when people say that, because you're like, well, I'm pregnant and I'm done. Like, I can't do this again. You know, I mean, if I had to, obviously I would. But I'm not choosing to do this again, you know. And so you're going to get that opinion, and then you're going to get the opinion of, oh my gosh, you're having more than 2 kids. What? Like, haven't you got a TV? Which I just think is ridiculous. Since when was, like, the 3 kids become a large family? I don't know. Guess it depends on what part of the world you're from and your culture and all that, but I think it's kind of crazy. And so you're going to get opinions from both sides. My advice is to just ignore them, because it's up to you and your family, and everybody's circumstances are different. Everybody's like capacity for dealing with things is different, and you know what's right for you, and you'll come to a conclusion either way. So just try and put them aside and ignore them. Like, sure, you can ask around and ask people how they cope with things, but don't take it to heart, like when someone comes and offers unsolicited advice, I guess is what I'm saying. Because people do. They do a lot. And they say weird things. Like, I remember going to church 2 weeks after having my second child, and she was a girl, and I already had a boy, and they were like, oh, so you're done now. Like, why would you have any more children? You have one of each. Like, why would you want any more? It's just like, you know, and like asking a woman 2 weeks postpartum if she's gonna have more kids, like, who does that? Anyway, so the next thing I think is wise to consider is the age gap, and that was definitely a sway factor for us because our first two are 18 months apart. It was either have one now that's close, because I didn't want to have like two and then a big gap and then one, because I felt like one would definitely be left out then, and it would be also difficult to do things as a family because one child would be at a completely different stage of life. So for us, that was the choice, was to finish with 3 but have them all close together. So the age gap is 18 months between the first 2, and then our second 2, it's 2 years almost to the day. They were actually born a day apart. So that is definitely something to consider. In my family, I am the eldest of 4 siblings, and my parents had 2, and then there is, oh golly, I think it's a 4-year age gap between my brother and my next sister, and then they had 2 more. And my 2 youngest sisters are 17 months apart, and so they were close, and my brother and I were close, but we all gelled really well together too. So think about that. Like, if 3 is it, I think you can totally make it work if you're going to have a big gap, but it might just bring some different challenges that you hadn't thought of. Obviously, having kids all close together also has its challenges. It's full on and it's busy and all that, but it doesn't mean that it's a bad thing. The next thing to consider is your parenting style. Are you a go with the flow kind of parent? Are you a strict routine kind of parent? Like, just think about what you want for your family and how you like to parent. For me, I'm very much a routine oriented person. I like to have things structured and in place and as possible as it is when you have 3 children, 3 very young children. I mean, like, you would laugh at me if you saw my living room right now. There's toys from like one end of it to the other. It's midway through the day. I don't bother picking up, but the kids are all down having their naps. So there is an element of routine and structure in our home. And that works really well when we have our 3 children close in age. Sorry, there's like flyaways in front of the screen. If you're just to go with the flow kind of person, you're probably going to handle it just fine, and I wouldn't be concerned at all. I also want you to consider yourself in all of this and how you may or may not cope with it. I felt like 3 was probably it for me, like as far as what I could cope with in a healthy way at this stage of life. Like, you know, maybe later on, after I've had a break, my body's had a chance to, you know, I was going to say rehabilitate, but, you know, recoup from like 3 pregnancies close together, I would cope well with having another child. But right now, I'm there, I'm done. And I didn't want to get to the point where I couldn't enjoy the children I had. And I know that sometimes you just have to do it because sometimes you have surprise pregnancies. But, you know, if you're choosing, then do consider, you know, what you feel as though you're going to be able to cope with. And I don't want to like put you off if you feel like you can't do it, you know, because I think there's always an element of that, like, oh my gosh, how am I going to cope with 3 kids? Like, 3 kids is a lot, you know, and you are more capable than you give yourself credit. So I don't want you to like totally put you off from that point of view, but just also think about just from a health perspective, like, what is your mental health like? You know, what are you physically like? Are you taking care of yourself enough so that you are able to care for your children? Because if you're not, that needs to be your priority first. Because we all know, what is the thing? You can't pour from an empty cup, blah, blah, blah. That. Just all that. One thing that is super important is also your support system. What kind of support system do you have? Because they're not kidding when they say that when you go from like 2 to 3 kids, it is a game changer because you can't just split it between you and your husband anymore. You're always outnumbered. So it does make a difference if you have a really good support system. We have my husband's parents in the same town. We have my parents just an hour away. We have my sister and her husband just an hour away. Like, we have a lot. So that is something to be aware of. And when I had my 3rd baby, my parents actually took my eldest 2 just for a couple of nights so that I could recuperate from the whole birth and everything before having to take on the role of mother to 3 straight away. So yeah, things like that do make a difference, especially in that first year when you have a baby and 2 older kids. It can be full on, and so having a good support system is important. And even just like your spouse, like, does your spouse, are they supportive? Are they hands-on? Because that really does make a difference. I'm very blessed to have a hands-on husband that helps out. He's such a good parent, you know. He's not just a dad that comes in and like does what he has to do. He's a dad that comes home and does what he's supposed to do because he's a father. As far as what it's like to have 3 children. So my youngest is not quite 1. So this could change in a year, but I'm going to give you my experience right now. It's the same but different. I didn't find it that different going from 2 to 3 kids. I found every transition easier. 0 to 1 was by far the most difficult. 1 to 2 was challenging, but probably more so because I had postpartum depression. And then 2 to 3, I didn't really feel like I skipped a beat. I just kept going. So it's the same in the sense that you're already busy with 2 and you just added a 3rd one. But it's different because you have a 3rd child and a 3rd person in your family. And so, yeah. I would also say that it was not more difficult for me. But this is going to be different for everybody depending on your personality and all that kind of stuff. But it was not more difficult for me because I felt like life was already busy with having 2 little ones so close to in age, and I was used to juggling a lot of balls already, and so it wasn't harder for me, really. I didn't find that. But again, personal experience. What I did find was that it became busier when I had 2, and granted, it's very different having like 2 children, like 2 toddlers, because they entertain each other and they play with each other, and then having like a baby in the house as well, because a baby just needs more attention overall. So you are busier because you're feeding every few hours, changing diapers, getting them down for naps and things like that. But there just seems to always be something now. Like it's a lot harder to fit in downtime than it was before. It's not impossible. Like that is a priority in our home to have rest for everybody, mama included. But it is more of a challenge than it was previously. And then I'll also say that life is a lot fuller in the sense of it's just fun. It's crazy. Like I won't even joke with you. I lose it sometimes with my kids on a regular basis because they're crazy. But it is so wonderful and I wouldn't change it for the world. Like I just feel so incredibly blessed to have the children that I do, to have been given 3 children, you know, like so many cannot have children, and that is just heartbreaking. And so I'm so incredibly grateful for what I have. As crazy and hectic as it is right now with 3 children so close in age, life is full. My heart is full, and I couldn't ask for more than what I have right now. The days are busy. My children will sleep really well. I couldn't imagine doing this without having a routine, because I do have like a strict routine with my kids. I could not survive without it. But in general, having 3 kids hasn't been the horror show that everybody makes it out to be. Like, there's articles everywhere that say having 3 kids is the hardest. Well, maybe it is, but it's really not that awful, honestly. And I also think both my parents came from sibling sets of 3, and they both turned out pretty great. So I'm just going to go with that and say that my kids are going to turn out great because of that. So I hope you found this helpful, though. This, as I said, it's just my personal experience and things that I would suggest, because I remember, you know, doing a lot of thinking. And I did talk to my friends about it quite a bit, those who did have 3. And I will say several of them said it was the hardest number. But they've all gone on to have 4 kids. And so we're not going there. But, you know, I don't know if maybe 4 just felt easier because they were used to 3. Kind of like going from 2 to 3 wasn't that much harder for me. I don't know. But anyway. Like I said, I hope this was helpful. Any comments or questions would be appreciated. Just leave them down below, and I'll see you next time.